Hello everyone, I hope you're doing well. Today we're going to talk about calculation and how to train calculation, how to study chess, and how to overall become a good chess player. So if you're rated under 1700, this video is definitely for you. If you're rated above 1700, then you can just recheck your main style and your main everything. We will basically see how to calculate in chess, how to get better at calculating, and how to study calculation in order to actually never blunder. Because the whole point of calculation isn't to actually be a good guy that calculates well. No, the goal is really to be playing blunder-free chess games. And calculation is a tool. This is the best tool ever to actually not blunder anymore. So what has to be calculated? First of all, what has to be calculated are called forcing moves, checks, captures, threats at any level. And sure, the stronger you will get, the more rating points you will have, the you will have at some point to become some sort of an expert and specialize yourself in your field. So basically, at your own openings, and then the more games you will play against high-rated opponents, the less those this concept those concepts will actually matter, even though they will always matter, but they will be influenced by the fact that every single opening has very different type of concepts in them. For example, when you play Caro-Kann structures, you will never have the same concepts as in the Sicilian game, or very rarely. Yeah, there is like very rarely crossovers. Just to keep it simple. The same way that game plans do change a lot based on every single opening. So we have to really put it that way. Now you have to calculate forcing moves. But not only forcing moves, there is also something called weak signals. So this is now where things become interesting because people usually call that weaknesses and they never understand why am I looking for weaknesses and weak signals. But it's actually the same thing. I'm just making a list very quickly. Weak signals that are being counted are the king safety. If the king is not behind its own pawns and can be checked or harassed, then the king is not safe. Once you realize that there is weak signals, so in that case the king, or in a certain case the king safety is involved, you have to look for forcing moves around the king, so checks, captures, and threats around the king. So king safety. Unresolved tensions. A tension is when something can capture something else, or vice versa. For example, pawns in the center, a piece can capture whatever. Once there is a tension in the center or anywhere on the board, you have to calculate what's happening. Someone resolves the tension. So what happens if someone actually captures something? Then you have unprotected pieces. When there is an unprotected piece, you have to be able to see if it can get attacked or if you can attack it, or if there are any other forcing moves involved against this unprotected piece. So king safety, unresolved tensions, unprotected pieces, and now on the top of everything, we have a more positional pattern than really anything more. Um, but basically, okay, wait, I'm sorry, I just lost myself. So king safety, unprotected pieces, unresolved tensions, and alignments. So for example, if you have a bishop that is on the same diagonal as the queen, this is a weak signal. We have to see what happens if you actually start to do concrete stuff. So if you start to calculate forcing moves on on this weak signal, so on this alignment. So in that case, that would be the rook being aligned with the bishop being aligned with the queen, and so forth. Now, in this puzzle, which is a game played by two 2200s on lichess, White played the move bishop takes f6, and this is a little bit weird move because the queen is definitely hanging. So here, as white, you have to calculate what's happening if the bishop captures the queen, obviously. As much as here as black, when you played bishop g4, it doesn't feel like it, but bishop f6 is still a tension that is creating a threat. It's still creating a threat of capturing on e7, making a fork. I mean, I'm sorry, not making a fork, of forking, as I was explaining, as someone explained it to me in my most recent upload. So since you realize that there is a potential capture over here, you have to calculate a move, or at the very least, think about the move before playing bishop g4. Why? Because it's a forcing move. But why forcing moves? The reason is simple. You can lose a game because of one capture. You can have the best ideas ever. If you miss one forcing move, the game is over. And we cannot lose the game when we played better. You have to have this winning envy. Yeah, you don't want to play the best game ever but still lose. The goal isn't to be the best number two in the world. Yeah, the goal is to win. So after bishop f6, what has to be calculated is what happens if you capture the queen. But why the queen? Because once again, it is an unresolved tension. And if you calculate bishop d1 and realize now it doesn't give you anything, which is very unlikely, let's just be honest about that. It's very, very, very unlikely. And still, there would be another forcing move to calculate, which is bishop takes f6. So in that case, I just calculate bishop d1. So in that position, my opponent has three minor pieces, I have two, so he's up a piece. I capture, I have a queen for a piece, and he captures on e7, he has a second piece. And now I see that if I move back, he captures, I capture back, and I'm down a piece. I cannot move my bishop back. So after bishop d1, bishop e7, what happens if I play, for example, mm, captures over there? He captures back, and I move my bishop back, and I'm still down a full piece, so it's not good. So I capture, he captures on e7. What happens if I go queen d7? He captures, I capture back. He captures on d1. What do I have right now? I have a rook against a rook, and he has a rook and two minor pieces for a queen. Okay, so he's actually threatening to win more material than I do. Now, what I see in this position is, wait, if I capture on d1, he captures on e7, maybe I can do something against some of his unprotected pieces. So I can ask myself the question, what happens if I go, for example, rook e8? I see that the rook on e1 is not protected because it's no longer being protected by two rooks. So I calculate captures, he captures, I capture back. Now, what happens if he captures on d8? I see that I can just go rook takes. He goes bishop f1 or knight f1 or whatever. Then I capture back, and what is the material count? Then I have two rooks and a minor piece against one rook and two minor pieces. So I do have, I'm up in exchange. Then I start to ask myself the question, what happens if after captures e7, instead of rook 8, I go queen e8, because now I'm saving the queen. I just see that he can just capture back the bishop with the other rook, and now the difference is that my rook is being trapped, and I will still lose, this material. So I guess I can just capture on d1 because I have rook 8 in this position. If he captures on d8, then we have the line that we just saw. And in that case, I will have, like I said, two rooks and one minor piece against a rook and two minor pieces, so I'm basically up in exchange. Let's just keep going. More exercises, more examples. So in that case, I see that, first of all, the king is a weak signal. How do I see that? Very simple. I have a lot of pieces that are attacking the squares around the white king. So I have the rook doing a nice job. I have the bishop indirectly doing a nice job. I have the knight. I have the pawns. I have both rooks, like I said. So I have to look for forcing moves against the king. So the first thing that I see is, okay, I have a check. I see that I can capture here, eventually threaten the check, but at the same time, I also see that I have a check. So I already have two candidates. Knight d4 to threaten knight c2 is the third one, but it's a little bit off. So of course, I saw the answer immediately. Do not get me wrong. It's just that I want to show you what it basically looks like, so that you could feel that some of those moments basically feel familiar to yours. I see that if I capture, he can just move back to d1, and now I have two minor pieces against the queen. I'm not sure about that. And if I give a check, he just runs away. That's weird. But now I just spotted something more. Captures rook d1, bishop d4. If he moves back, oh my goodness, I would like to play knight d4, but there is a rook, and I have a bishop already on d4. And this is when I see that, oh, but I can actually play bishop c5 because the rook can't, the king can't go on the d file because of the rook on the d file. It can't go to f3, f4 because of the rook and the pawn. It only has the d2 square, the e2 square, after which I have knight d4, which is a fork. And as you might have realized, and maybe you probably ask yourself the following question, but wait, Loris, how come do we have tactics, and what is the difference between tactics and calculation? This is a very simple answer. Tactics, people will basically mis-explain to you and tell you that it's a short-term win. um, when you play chess, you're not a civilian, yeah. So we're not talking about strategy, long-term ideas with potential long-term, outcomes. No, you're talking to shamans who basically don't know what they're talking about. Tactics are patterns. This is literally what it means. Tactics are patterns. Pattern. That involves pattern recognition. So check, so forks, skewers, pins, whatever, double attacks, those are patterns. Strategy is just a very silly way of saying I don't want to calculate. I just want to evaluate my position as much as I can because I can't calculate. Simple as that. And sure, some people will cope and tell to you, no, I'm not a good tactician. I'm not a good dynamical player. I'm more of a strategist, positional player. You're just lazy. It just means that you're never training calculation because it doesn't matter what your chess style is all about. Like I said it before, you can have the greatest ideas ever and then still lose because of one tactic. And it doesn't matter who you are. If you do not see a one move blunder or one move tactic, you lose the game. So there is no such thing as this is my style, this is the way I approach a game. You're a liar, or at the very least, you're coping. So keep it simple. You always want to be able to calculate as much as possible because this is what chess is all about. Now, tactics are basically patterns. And sure, when you have a position like this one, that would be easier for you to already spot tactics. And this is why my other videos about tactics are out. It is because you have to know that tactics are very, very important. It just helps you to recognize some patterns here and there. Um, but you get the main aspect of calculation yet again. Okay, next position. In that position, the first thing that I see is the king is a weak signal. Why? Because the bishop is targeting a couple of squares around the king. So of course I have to look for checks, captures, and threats against the king. So obviously I'm not looking at queen e1, obviously, but I'm looking at queen e4, which is already threatening to win on the light squares. And sure, if you're a strategist, you can just tell me, yeah, but you see, Loris, in this position when I had the white pieces, I understood that my bishop was very strong on this diagonal. Yeah, but where does it come from? It comes from pattern recognition, comes from the fact that you have seen those checkmates happening around the king. So don't lie to me and do your work, train calculation. Do more. Do more. Now, in this position, I see that I have to move queen e4, which is already threatening checkmate. But obviously, I do see that there is queen d8 check coming for white. But it's okay, I have knight e8. I also do see that there is rook c1. And I see that if I capture queen d8, now I have to go queen e8, which protects the bishop. So after queen e4, the question is, how does white actually defend against my mating threat? What happens if f3? Oh, if f3, then I have check, the king runs away and I capture the rook. Okay, so that's just me blunder check again, queen e4. Am I sure that I haven't missed anything with the very simple checks, captures, and threats methodology? Queen e4, rook c8. Okay, I can just capture. If queen d8, I move back. Okay, what happens if he goes queen b8? Yeah, I have knight e8, and I'm just fine. Okay, so queen e4. In that case, I'm just rechecking very quickly just for me, but I guess knight e8 is very slow because he can just capture, I capture back, and then the material count is equal. And maybe there's queen b8 and we train the queens off. So I would just play knight e8. It's I'm sorry. I'm sorry. This is literally what I just said. That knight e8 is off because he can just straight and go queen b8. No, sorry. I meant that now I have to capture the bishop because now if he goes queen d8, this is now we saw before with queen 8. Sorry, my brain just disconnected, but I explained it the right way, so you know that I'm not, you know. Anyway, next position, queen c3. What I spotted this position already is I have a lot of forcing moves here. I have so much tension on the king side, plus the king is absolutely disastrous. So I can just see that if I give him one check, the king can't move at all. And this is yet another concept. The king can't move at all. So one check and the game is over. So the first thing that I'm asking myself is there a way for me to give a check? Maybe not with the queen. Oh, but this rook isn't doing anything. And some of you will tell me, yeah, Loris, but this is strategy. I just spotted that this rook isn't doing anything. Liar. The only way for you to understand, whatever, strategically speaking, long-term pressure and oh my goodness, I'm a shaman, I'm a talent, whatever, is to understand that there is a tactical outcome. In that case, if you go rook d8, which is improving the rook, you already spot the problem over here, which is that you're threatening mate. So queen d8, the first question that I'm asking myself is, are there any forcing moves for white? I just see this, but I see that there is just no continuation, so I don't really care. What happens if he goes rook d2, though? If he goes rook d2, if I capture, he captures back. Oh, but the queen is no longer protecting there. Of course, I didn't say it out loud. It went very fast for me. But if I capture, he captures back, this is mate. So he has to capture back with the queen. And now basically everything is more or less protected. And I don't like it to give very simple moves to my opponents. So I just see that I can go rook d8. And now if he ever tries to go rook d2, captures, now I can capture over there. And I don't see a single check on the other side. I just see that if captures, I have check, this, and I can just capture everything with check. But maybe it's not enough because I still see those pawn moves. And I don't know if it is because I'm lazy explaining my moves out loud or anything more, but I just don't see any outcomes here for black. So again, rook d8, rook d2. Maybe instead of capturing on d2, I should be capturing on g3 first. Because now the difference is if he captures on d8, it's not a check. I have queen h2, king f1, queen f2 checkmate because the rook is on d8. So rook d8, rook d2 captures. If he goes queen takes, and I can just trade the queens off with check. He captures back, then rook takes, and I'm up a rook for maybe 2 or 3 pawns, but I will figure it out. I mean, I'm certainly completely winning. The pawns are not dangerous. When the pawns are over there, they're not dangerous. If the pawns were there, this would be another story. I mean, I might be wrong, but who knows? Chess is so hard. Like 50% of the time you'll be wrong anyway. So whatever. Now, rook d8, rook d2, I capture. If he captures back, I see that I have queen. I'm sorry, queen h1, king f2, check, king there, and now the question is, how do I win? I see that if I give him a check, he goes king e2. Um, okay, I would just try it a little bit slower because I don't see the answer. Rook d8, rook d2. There's also a chance that there is nothing, but that would be silly. Captures, captures. I mean, I just have queen. No, I don't have queen g3. What am I talking about? Okay, wait. I would just try it a little bit slower. Um, this is the reason why I'm strong. It is because when I realize it is not simple, I actually take time to calculate. Rook d8, rook d2. Capture on g3. Capture back. Szachulec to. Okay, I found the answer. It's rook d8 because after rook d2, when I capture, he captures back. I have check, you go there. I have check, you go there. I have check, you go back. I capture, you capture, and I capture on c5. Okay, rook d8 captures. Very good. Okay, now the engine is giving me the um, this line. But basically, here the point would be that after all the checks, basically I'm trading off and I'm winning the knight, and he's completely winning because I'm up a piece. And even though he has those pawns on the queen side, they are okay. Now I'm just checking the engine evaluation. Yeah, now the engine. This is a hard position. Somehow it's a hard one. How do I win here? Okay, now I have to learn. There's something I have to learn. Is rook h8 only move? Oh my. Okay, I didn't see that. Rook h8 is. I mean, the engine is an animal. I understand why. It's because you're threatening check this, and then queen e1 or queen g1, and at some point there will either be some bishop e4 if the knight moves away, or maybe I mean it's just that I'm having the same position where at some point I'm basically winning the knight, you know, basically winning the knight eventually, and it's just that I'm still having the rooks on the board, so the king is not safe. But okay, the engine is an animal. Let's just keep going. Okay, first thing that I see is that the weak signals in White's position are the rook, or the rook and the queen. Yeah. So the weak signals are the rook that is being unprotected, and I already have this alignment with the queen against the rook. And on the top of that, I do spot the queen on c8 that could eventually be attacked by some sort of a discover attack. So I'm just calculating rook c4. Now, if he goes queen takes, and I just capture the rook, and it's winning. If rook c4, I just don't see any good ways for white to both deal with this weak signal, so the queen being attacked, and the rook being attacked. So rook c4, I don't see a single check against the king. I would guess it is fine. I just played randomly. It's not good. Yeah, always calculate. I don't know why I did it so fast. I'm just interested. What? I'm just curious. What's the point? What am I missing? Rook c4. Okay. Am I blind? I don't see the problem. If you don't see the problem, it means that's you the problem, or you're the problem. Wait, what's happening right there? I don't know what's happening. Rook c4. Ah, because of queen c4 captures, there is queen f1. Oh my goodness. Yeah, that was a simple mistake. Yeah, then it's rook b8. Because now if you capture, okay, I will show you. This is okay. This is a small silly mistake from me. Basically, if queen c4 captures, this is not made, there is queen f1. I missed a simple thing. It happens. But here I'm sorry, but here rook b8 just deals with that because now if queen c4 captures, I'm still having the rook, so I'm basically up a piece after the trade. Yeah, and if he captures, now it's mate. I guess it's a silly mistake, but at the same time, that's a good way for you to see what's concretely happening when you're calculating. If you have any more questions, just let me know. That's always a pleasure for me to answer you. We saw a lot of concepts here today, so you do understand a little bit more, you know, how chess basically looks like. If you're interested in more calculation courses that are more seriously done than this one, I just just recorded. There's a very small there's very small content for you between two glass of coffee, 2 cups of coffees. So if there's anything more, just let me know. Send me a message, and see you in the future for the future uploads. Take care.